You wake up 7 minutes before your alarm. You've done this for years. Your body doesn't need the alarm anymore. It just knows. You lie there for a moment, staring at nothing. You're not unhappy, exactly. You have a good job, a real salary, benefits, the kind of career your parents would have been proud of. And yet, there's this quiet tension sitting in your chest that you can't quite explain. You're earning more than most people around you, and somehow you feel less free than you did 10 years ago when you had almost nothing. That contradiction is not a personal failure. It is a pattern, and once you understand how it works, you won't be able to see your paycheck the same way again. Most people operate under a simple assumption: a good salary equals financial security. Earn more, worry less. Get promoted, breathe easier. It sounds logical. It feels true. And for most of your life, everything around you has reinforced it. Parents, teachers, career advisors, culture itself, all pointing in the same direction. Get the degree, land the job, climb the ladder. But here's what almost no one talks about. A salary is not wealth. It is a transaction. You are exchanging your time, your energy, your presence, your best hours for a number that hits your account twice a month. And the moment that number arrives, it begins to disappear. Not dramatically, not all at once, but in small, quiet, perfectly structured increments that are almost invisible in real time. This is the mechanism that keeps high earners feeling stuck. Not reckless spending, not poor decisions, but a structural design that fragments your income so efficiently that you never actually accumulate anything. Let me show you what I mean. Take someone earning $85,000 a year. On paper, that puts them in the top 20% of individual earners. That should feel significant. It doesn't. Here's why. Every 2 weeks, roughly $3,200 arrives before taxes. After federal, state, and payroll deductions, it's closer to $2,400. Already a quarter of the money is gone before a single decision has been made. Now watch what happens next. Rent or mortgage takes $1,200. Groceries and the occasional meal out, $400. Car payment, insurance, fuel, somewhere around $550. Phone, internet, a few subscriptions, maybe $120. Utilities, another $140. Add it up, $2,410 out of $2,458. $48. That is what remains for 2 full weeks, for savings, for emergencies, for anything resembling forward motion. And here is the part that makes this so effective. It doesn't feel like deprivation. There's a car in the driveway, there's food in the fridge, the apartment is decent. From the outside, everything looks like it's working. That is the first layer of the trap. When money enters as a lump and exits as fragments, your brain processes it differently. You register the income as one event, but the expenses are spread across dozens of small, forgettable transactions, so you never feel the full weight of what's leaving. You experience a lifestyle, not a financial position, and there is an enormous difference between the two. But fragmentation alone doesn't explain why this pattern holds across income levels. To understand that, you have to look at something deeper, something almost everyone does, almost no one notices, and almost nothing in our culture warns you about. When your income increases, your expenses don't stay the same. They rise to meet it. Economists have a clinical term for this, lifestyle inflation, but that term makes it sound like a choice, like something you could simply opt out of if you were more disciplined. It's more structural than that. When you land your first real job at $50,000 or $60,000, your environment changes. You move out of the shared apartment, you get a better car, you eat at slightly different restaurants, you buy better clothes. None of these feel extravagant. Each one feels earned, reasonable, proportional. Then you get promoted. 80, 90,000. The apartment becomes a nicer apartment or a house. The car payment doubles. Maybe there's a vacation you wouldn't have booked at the old salary, a gym membership, a few new subscriptions. Again, nothing outrageous, all of it justifiable. And this is the precise mechanism. Each increase in income feels like an expansion of freedom, but each corresponding increase in lifestyle is actually a contraction of it. Because now you need that salary, not the old one, this one, the new baseline. The nicer rent, the upgraded car, the slightly more expensive everything, it all requires the current paycheck to sustain. Your cost of living has silently synchronized with your cost of earning. You didn't get wealthier, you got more committed. This is where the concept of golden handcuffs becomes real, and not in the way most people think about it. Golden handcuffs aren't just stock options and retention bonuses at tech companies. They are any financial structure where your obligations have grown to match your income so precisely that leaving feels impossible. Let me give you a concrete picture. Someone in their late 30s, working in a well-paying corporate role, earning $140,000 a year, on any measure a successful career. But beneath the surface, here's the architecture of their life. A mortgage at $3,000 a month, 2 car payments totaling $900, childcare at $1,500, insurance premiums, student loan payments still lingering, utilities, groceries, the baseline cost of maintaining the life they've built. By the time you add it all up, the margin between what comes in and what must go out is razor thin, and it stays that way because every time the income went up, the obligations went up with it. So when a promotion comes, what happens? Relief, gratitude, a brief sense of breathing room. Then the mortgage adjusts. The kids need something. The older car starts costing more in repairs, so it gets replaced. And within a few months, the stress level is exactly where it was before the raise. This is not a failure of discipline. It is the natural consequence of a financial life built on income rather than margin. When everything you earn is already allocated, every dollar of growth is absorbed before it can accumulate. The math is remarkably consistent. Whether someone earns $60,000 or $600,000, if their required expenses consume 95% of their income, the experience of financial pressure is nearly identical. The scenery changes, the cars are nicer, the anxiety is the same. And this creates a secondary effect that rarely gets discussed: dependency. When your financial obligations consume nearly all of your income, your relationship with your employer changes fundamentally. It stops being a choice you're making and becomes a requirement you're serving. You don't stay because you love the work, you stay because the cost of leaving has become unbearable. Think about what this means in practical terms. You can't take 6 months to explore a different direction. You can't accept a lower-paying role that might be more aligned with what you actually want. You can't start something on your own because the runway doesn't exist. Every month, everything you earn is already spoken for. Your landlord expects it, your bank expects it, your insurance company, your utility provider, the loan servicer. They're all structured around the assumption that your income will continue uninterrupted at its current level. You've become a reliable revenue stream for a dozen different entities, and that is a comfortable position for them, less so for you. Here's a question worth sitting with. If you left your job tomorrow with no backup plan, how many months could you sustain your current life? Not a stripped-down version, your actual life, the one you're living right now. If the answer is less than 3 months, then what you have is not security, it is dependency with good furniture. And you are far from alone in that. The majority of working professionals, including those earning well into 6 figures, could not maintain their lifestyle for more than 30 to 60 days without active income. That is the real number behind the polished exterior. One disruption, one layoff, one health event, and the entire structure begins to buckle. Now, there's a subtler dimension to all of this that goes beyond the math. It's psychological, and it might be the most important part. The way most people measure progress is by looking at visible markers: a better title, a higher salary, a nicer home, a newer car. These things feel like advancement, and in social terms, they are. But financially, they often represent the opposite. They represent increased obligation, increased exposure, and decreased flexibility. The person who gets promoted and immediately upgrades their lifestyle has not gained ground. They've traded a smaller treadmill for a larger one. The speed is the same, the distance covered is the same, only the scenery has improved. And this is where the psychology becomes especially sharp, because the emotional reward of the upgrade is real. It feels like progress. The new apartment feels like a win. The better car feels earned. The brain registers these as forward movement, as proof that the strategy is working. So the behavior reinforces itself year after year, raise after raise. Meanwhile, the one number that actually determines financial freedom, the gap between income and required expenses, stays flat or shrinks. This is not something people are warned about. Career advice focuses exclusively on increasing the top line: earn more, get promoted, negotiate harder. And none of that is wrong, but without a corresponding strategy for the bottom line, for what you actually require to live, higher income simply means higher stakes, not higher freedom. So, what actually changes the equation? It starts with a fundamental reframe. Instead of asking, how do I earn more, the better question is, how do I need less? Not in a deprivation sense, not in a cut your daily coffee sense, but in a structural sense. What would it take to build a life where your required monthly expenses are meaningfully lower than your monthly income? Not by 5%, by 20, by 30, by enough that the gap becomes a tool rather than an afterthought. Because that gap is everything. When your expenses require 95% of your income, you are locked in. When they require 70%, something shifts, psychologically and practically. You have breathing room, you have options, you have time. And this is where the concept of optionality becomes the real measure of financial health. Not net worth on paper, not salary figures, but the number of viable choices available to you at any given moment. Can you leave a job you dislike without financial catastrophe? Can you take 3 months to figure out your next move? Can you say no to a promotion that requires relocating to a city you don't want to live in? Can you invest in an idea without betting your family's stability on it? If the answer to those questions is no, then your income, however impressive, is not serving you. It is maintaining a structure that you serve. The path out of this is not complicated, but it does require thinking differently about what financial progress actually means. The first shift is separating income from wealth. They are not the same thing. Income is what flows through your account. Wealth is what stays. A $200,000 salary with $4,000 in savings is not financial strength. It is high-velocity fragility. $50,000 in liquid savings with a moderate income is a fundamentally more resilient position. The second shift is treating the gap as your primary financial metric, not your salary, not your title, not your tax bracket. The gap between what you earn and what your life requires. That number determines your trajectory more than anything else. And unlike income, which depends on employers and markets and negotiations, the expense side of that equation is largely within your control. The third shift is redirecting whatever margin you create into assets rather than obligations. There's a clean distinction here. An asset puts money into your life over time. An obligation takes it out. A car payment is an obligation. An investment account is an asset. A subscription is an obligation. A skill that generates independent income is an asset. The question to keep asking is, does this thing I'm spending on increase my options or reduce them? The fourth shift, and this is the one that changes the felt experience of your life most dramatically, is building a runway. 3 months of expenses in accessible savings changes your psychology. 6 months changes your behavior. 12 months changes what is possible. When you have a runway, negotiations feel different, career decisions feel different, risk feels different. You are no longer making choices from a position of dependency, you are making them from a position of clarity, and those two things produce very different outcomes. There's one more layer here that's worth naming because it operates beneath all the financial mechanics: identity. For most people, salary is not just a number, it is a signal. It tells you and the world where you stand, how well you've done, how seriously to take yourself. And because of that, any suggestion to decouple your lifestyle from your income feels threatening. It feels like going backward. It feels like admitting something didn't work. But this is where the frame needs to shift completely. Choosing to live below your income is not retreat. It is strategy. It is the deliberate construction of a life that does not require you to show up to a specific place at a specific time for a specific person every single week just to keep the lights on. The people who build real financial independence, not the loud ones on social media, but the quiet ones who actually have it, almost always share one characteristic. At some point, they stopped optimizing for income and started optimizing for margin. They let the gap grow. They redirected the surplus, and over time, the math did what it does. Not overnight, not dramatically, but inevitably. The pattern I've described in this video is not a conspiracy. No one sat in a room and designed it. It is an emergent property of how consumer economies, credit markets, and human psychology interact. The incentives are aligned in a way that naturally produces this outcome. Higher income leads to higher consumption, leads to higher dependency, leads to the need for continued or higher income. It's a loop, and it sustains itself because every individual step within it feels rational. That is what makes it so effective, and that is also what makes it breakable. Because the moment you see the loop for what it is, you can choose to step outside of it, not by rejecting your career or your income, but by changing what you do with the margin. The salary is not the trap, the absence of margin is. And margin, unlike salary, is something you can build starting today, with the next paycheck, with the next decision about what your life actually requires versus what it has simply grown accustomed to. That distinction between requirement and habit, between need and default, is where financial freedom actually begins. If this gave you a framework you hadn't considered before, there's more where this came from. We explore the structural side of money, the patterns that shape financial outcomes long before any budget spreadsheet gets involved. Next time, we're going deeper into the mechanics of how wealth actually compounds, and why most people never reach the threshold where it starts. I'll see you there.